Okay, thank you. Oh, welcome. Hello, Kate. Welcome to today's Forestry Subcommittee meeting. We are, of course, live streaming, so just a quick reminder about that. So the Zoom protocols apply. If you've got any questions, please raise your hand in the box, and we will come to you at due course. When we come to a vote, we'll use our little wee red and green buttons in the chat thing. I'm sure you're all very familiar with the processes. Excuse me. So we'll just open off by apologies, and there are none because I can see we're all here. Thank you. Welcome. Order of business is as per the agenda. There's no reason to deviate from that, and we'll move straight to the interests. Are there any interests for today and or for updating onto the register? Okay, I'll take that as a no. We'll continue moving through. No public forum today. We'll move to item 5, confirmation of the minutes. There in your documents, the minutes of 1 December 2021. And I understand there is a slight change, Mr. Levertis, that we need to note in these minutes.
Thank you. Through the chair, if I can turn you to, if you could rather turn to page 7, item 9. And I'll just give you time to do that. Item 9, page 7, the paragraph starting, he reported delays in health, safety and recreational considerations, should read, he reported delays in resource consenting considerations. And my apologies, I should have picked that up.
Okay, so thank you for that. So I'm happy with that amendment, and I'm happy to move that the minutes be adopted, receives. Happy that the minutes be received. Is it that resolution? Apologies for that. Confirms the minutes of the meeting of Forestry Subcommittee held on 1 December as a true and correct record subject to that amendment. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Mayor Rees. Any discussion on the motion? No, I'll put that to the vote then. Here's the first test of voting. All those in favour say a green tick. 1, 2. Councillor Skinner, can't read you. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you. Gee, we got through test 1. Brilliant. Okay, next item is the chairperson's report. We don't have one today, but I have asked for some information to be included into the meeting as we go through the report. Just keen to hear from Sam around current operations and also the forecast moving forward, given that we've got a reasonably torrid economic time coming with COVID and also the Ukraine global situation. So of course we have operate in both markets. So anyway, we'll pick that up as we go through. So I'll just hand over the report to Alec, and we'll take questions on the way through as we go. Thank you.
Thank you through the chair. So first of all, I'll take the report as read. We'll do what we normally do, if that's okay, through the chair, just move through the report page per page, item per item, if that's okay. So the first item is the update on the new bridges. So the Roding Bridge, that work is about to commence, and the Maitai Bridge obviously is no longer on here because it's been completed. The Maitai harvesting is progressing well, and the Marsden harvesting has commenced. So I'll just stop there and see if there are any questions on those items.
Councillor Sanson, so you got a question there.
Thanks very much, John. Kia ora, Alec. I did send my questions through to both of you yesterday. So I'm just wanting to check if the land that's being harvested, block 4205, is the same as that the antenna notification went out about.
So the antenna, so through the chair, the antenna notification is work above the Marsden Valley Dog Park, and that's private.
Okay, so it's not the council land. Okay, thanks very much.
So through the chair, item 4.1, we just leave that on there, just so that the committee doesn't lose sight of the fact that Tasman pine forests, when they harvest that, we need to be involved. So that's just a standing item, and it's been on there for a wee while now, and Tasman have not provided us or given us an indication of when they intend to harvest. But front of mind means that it won't slip the forest. So moving on to page 9, health and safety. So there were no safe work observations undertaken by us. And I just need to qualify that does not include Sam and his PF Olsen team, who are regularly undertaking safe work observations, but I refer specifically between ourselves. And perhaps when COVID allows, that we can actually get up to the sites once more. In terms of item 6, and I presume anybody will just stop and put their hand up if I am moving too quick. John?
Question on health and safety, Councillor Sampson?
No, it's actually on item 6, ungulate control. I thought Alec was up to there.
I was about to start on that point. So
yeah, I can wait.
So through the chair, I put this into the report because an issue was raised at the previous meeting about the negative impact or effects of ungulates within our forest planting, and that there was a noticeable increase, shall I say, of our young plants being eaten by ungulates. Under 6.2, I provide the results of the most recent cull in 2021, and also give the stats 2018, 2019, and 2020. So this is a joint effort between my group and Claire Barton's group, the environmental management, in terms of how we control ungulates in both our water catchments and the wider areas under Claire's control, Ms. Barton's control, and discussions are ongoing in terms of controlling ungulates across the council. So I put this in for completeness because it was raised, and I am in discussion with both Ms. Barton and her staff and my staff, looking at ways to control ungulates, not only in our forests, but in our water catchments and the wider area. There was a question from Councillor Sanson, and the question is, ungulate control, is ungulate control in council's forestry blocks charged to the forestry account? If not, which activity areas are ungulate control costs charged to? As I indicated, the costs are undertaken and spread across Ms. Barton's group and my group. PF Olsen did not undertake ungulate control, and they do not contribute to that. There's a bigger ungulate program in place. And I'll also point out that the forestry is a very, very small percentage of the total. It's around 5%.
So can I just clarify that, Alec? Thanks, through the chair. So the ungulate control is charged to Parks and Recreation. It's not charged to PF Olsen. Is it charged to the forestry account in any way? I couldn't see it in the estimates book. No, so Parks and Recreation covers the costs. So that pillar covers the costs of ungulate control in council's forestry blocks.
It's not only Parks and Reserves, it's Ms. Barton, it's Parks and Reserves and infrastructure.
Yeah, okay, thanks very much for clarifying that.
Through the chair, moving on. The forestry high-level review. I note there that all the consultants have been appointed and the peer reviewers have been notified and confirmed and are ready to do those peer reviews. Once all that work has been peer reviewed, it will be presented to the subcommittee as a package to guide for the development of the forestry activity management plan. There was a question from Councillor Sanson. Specifically, what the question is, what is the time frame for this? Will it be coming to the forestry subcommittee this financial year by the 30th of June 2022? Or this triennium by the end of September 2022? Will updates on this be reported to council? In reply to that question, I can advise that I'm expecting the separate pieces of work and the associated peer reviews as approved by the forestry subcommittee to be completed around May, June this year. The next step will be to present those reports and their findings as a package, firstly to the forestry subcommittee, and then council, by virtue of the fact that they are going to be guiding the next forestry activity management plan. And look, I'm unsure how long that process will take, but I'm envisaging that this will be several months because there will be several workshops. And I'm unsure, I cannot give you a firm date that this will be completed by the end of September, but it is a process. But we'll certainly be moving this forward, as I indicated, and updates will be provided to the forestry subcommittee and council as necessary.
If you don't mind me clarifying through the chair.
It's through the chair's, no, I'm happy to answer anything. It's through the chair.
Thanks, Alec. Then will the package be coming to the forestry subcommittee this financial year before the end of June, or to the forestry subcommittee this triennium? Because I understand that forestry AMP workshops are unlikely to start until sometime in 2023. So I think the first one we had this triennium would have been, the equivalent date would have been September 2023, which is, you know, a year and a half from now. So I'm just wanting to check if that work's going to come back to the forestry subcommittee this triennium.
I envisage that I need to check when the next forestry subcommittee meeting is. But as soon as I've got all that information, I will not be sitting on that. I will be presenting that back to this forestry subcommittee as a package. So I do need to stress that it will be presented as a package, not as individuals, because the information from each of those pieces of work, as well as the peer reviews, need to come back to the forestry and be considered as a whole. As to when, I don't know. I've given an indication in my reply that I'm hoping to have the reviews and the peer reviews in, all the work and the peer reviews done by around May, June, maybe around about June. And then I need to put that in front of the subcommittee, but I will be doing that as soon as I can.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alec.
Yeah, Reese.
Thanks, Alec. I really appreciate the efforts you're putting in to get this through. I know we do want to see it, so just really appreciate it. And if we need to do some juggling around with dates, John, you know, I'm willing to do that just to accommodate as well, if that's needed, just so that we can get that completed. So quite, yeah. So thank you for your efforts to get that through.
So through the chair, moving on. Consenting delays. I put this section in here because, as noted, the corrected minutes that we've just approved, or that the subcommittee just approved, excuse me, have raised the issue of consenting delays, and I said that I would follow up, and I have with Ms. Claire Barton, and I have noted her comments in that section. So more than that, I don't think I can say, other than for the roading, all the consents are in, and I think there's a wider issue there that Ms. Barton is alluding to. So I have copied that in.
Okay, but in terms of our operation, we've got everything we need to make progress.
To the best of my knowledge, yes, to the chair.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the work on that, guys. Yeah, Reese.
Well, thanks, Alec. And I just note that, you know, the conversation was actually quite helpful, because what it then did was actually, allowed the consents team to reflect on the situation that they're in, and then put out some communications to everyone, actually, to the community, about the fact that there are some challenges. And I think that's actually part of what Sam, we were talking about at our meeting, was actually we need to get some sense if there's pressure points, then, for everyone's planning, we need to know about them to do our very best to work around them, because, that's good project planning, whether it's, as Alex just been saying, where he's got things that he can't get through, he has to let us know about those and what his thinking is around time frame. It's when you don't know and you're sort of left waiting that it becomes expensive and incredibly frustrating. So I'm just really pleased the consents department have, sort of up their dialogue about what's happening with that scenario, so that we can work together on making things happen. But it's really hard when there's a vacuum of information. So I think it was a worthwhile conversation. I don't have a solution. Don't have the solution to the massive skill shortage in New Zealand at the moment in this space.
Through the chair, it was definitely a worthwhile conversation. So, and I'm always happy to have those conversations with my fellow group managers. Through the chair, continuing. So, carbon credit potential from Council Indigenous Forests, pages 9 and 10. So I remind the subcommittee of the council resolution. And then I also note under 6.6 that updates on this matter will be reported to both the subcommittee and council, and that has been done. The last council committee mimicked exactly the summary that I'm giving you here. We've engaged PF Olsen to do that work. We've broken out the exotic and the indigenous, and the exotic application is in. MPI have indicated that they have a significant backlog, and I've just received notification from them that they are up resourcing because they have been inundated, and no doubt will also be affected by the implications of COVID. So 6.8 exotic submission forestry application is in, and it is being processed by MPI as we speak. The indigenous forest is a little bit more complex, and we have to do some more work on that. Peter Gorman is handling that on my behalf and liaising as the go-between between NCC in terms of information and PF Olsen. And he certainly understands the urgency of that, and is liaising with PF Olsen on a regular basis to make sure that that work can move forward at pace. And then I give you an indication of what PF Olsen are charging us for that work.
Do you mind if I ask a question on that, Alec? I've sent it through to you.
If I was going to raise that through the chair. So, Councillor Sanson raised a question. I understand the exotic forest blocks have now been assessed and submitted for registration. Have any of these eligible blocks been harvested within the last year, or are planned to be harvested within the next year? If yes, if recently harvested blocks were replanted in native trees rather than pine, would they then be eligible for the permanent forest category of the ETS, so they could earn carbon credit revenue for council for generations to come? So my reply to the chair is 3 of the stands submitted for the ETS registration have been harvested and are scheduled for replanting next year, 2023. One further stand, the Douglas fir in the Mars block, we are looking as to when we will be harvesting that. If the harvested blocks are replanted in native, they would be eligible to be registered in the permanent forestry category of the ETS if A, it can be proven that the land was non-forest, that is grassland in 1990, and B, if the land is successfully established in native trees. I'll also note that the registration into the permanent category becomes available from the 1st of January 2023.
Thanks very much, Alex. So I'm looking at the, that list that you'd sent through of those blocks. I understand that they were previously registered, so they one could make the assumption that they are eligible. Do you think that that information, the fact that they have recently been harvested, have not yet been replanted, and if they were replanted in natives, would then be eligible for permanent forest, for the permanent forest category, and could earn carbon credits for generations to come. Do you think that that information is material to the committee and to the decisions that we'll be making around replanting?
So through the chair, I thought we had traversed this quite intensely at the council meeting, where the advice given by those that are sitting on here, including Mr. Peter Gorman, was that all forestry that is harvested underneath the current council policy will be replanted in pine, and we gave reasons for that. And I think one of the reasons was to prevent sedimentation, and we always were of the view that replanting in pine, which is existing current policy, council policy, it's easier to remove smaller trees if at any stage we were to reverse that decision. So I think the subcommittee as well as council have been fully appraised of the entire situation. And I don't know if there's any much more I can add through the chair.
Thanks. I guess the only difference is that there is new information now, and that at that time that decision was made, those blocks were not being registered for the emissions trading scheme. So now there is new information.
Yeah, thank you for that. We're going to move on. I'm sure the team will take into account the new information, but at the end of the day, we've got a clear pathway forward from the council meeting and the resolution that came out of that meeting, and we have no ability to vary from that at the point in time. Mayor Rees, question?
Well, it's more of a comment, if that's all right, Mr. Chair. I feel we've contemplated that option as part of our decision making at council. So this matter has been well traversed, and the advice was quite clear that the ground can't stay bare. So we agreed we were going to cut it. There wasn't any option around cutting it. It was going to be cut, and that was accepted accepted by all. The issue was what would happen next with it, and the replanting doesn't obfuscate the review that's initiated through the long-term plan. That's still in play. The issue was that the ground just can't stay bare, that you just can't leave it. And we wouldn't, Miss Spartan, I can assure you, in the science and environment, that consenting side of things would just say, no, you've got to do something about it. So I think the option that Peter put to us was one around good land management, but there's nothing here that negates any future decision around that process, unless there's something in play here that would take it out of that step, would take it out of ETS. And if that's an issue, then we'd need to consider that, but we'd still be stuck with the problem of that we've got a land management issue to deal with, and leaving bare land is not the desirable option. So I think that's kind of where we're sitting at the moment with that. So I guess that's really the sort of thinking around it. I do think that it would be useful, Mr. Chair, if some good FAQs could be produced around forestry. I think that would be really useful, so we've got some good clarity on this issue, would be my view. But if there's a piece of information here that's material, then I'm happy for Lockie and Peter, and to if there's anything, Peter, you think that we should be aware of, then really happy to hear from you. Likewise, you, Sam.
Okay, thank you. Sam, we'll go to Sam. Sam's got his hand up.
Thank you, John. Just a quick comment. Rachel just raised about a previously eligible area having the assumption that will now be eligible again when we re-enter. Ministry of, or Te Ururako Ministry of Forestry are a lot more harsh on which areas are eligible for forestry now. So what was deemed eligible back in, around the 2010 period may not be eligible now. So I thought I'd just raise that point for the group as a reminder.
Okay, thank you. I want to start to move on, but Councillor Sanson, you've still got your hand up. Have you still got another comment?
Yeah, thanks very much through the chair. So my understanding is that there is no suggestion to leave the ground bare, but that the kind of options really that the committee should maybe be considering in light of re-registration into the emissions trading scheme is whether it is planting Pinus radiata for clearfell forestry, where the once harvested, the carbon credits need to be relinquished, or whether it might be a better outcome could be planting of indigenous or native trees, or even an alternative exotic for permanent continuous canopy forests. Not any suggestion to leave the ground bare, which I don't think anybody thinks is a good idea.
Okay, Sam, you still got your hand up. Is more comment or? Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. We'll those comments have been noted. We'll move on.
Thank you through the chair. I think Mayor Rees has got a question.
Oh,
look, I'm just going. I don't think there's any other viable option at this point in time. So my understanding from Peter was that that's the option we can take, and then at a later point, if we decide that we're going to make a change, then we're in a position to do that. I do recall that there was no suggestion from Councillor Sense about delaying the harvest, so we're kind of stuck here with where we are. But I don't doubt there would have even been supply to look at trying to plant that level with Indigenous at that point. There'll be quite an order process to go through, but I'm certainly not feeling like the council, because it's the council in this case, has closed any doors in relation to what we're doing. So I'm happy to move on, Mr. Chair.
okay. All right, let's move on then.
Thank you through the chair. Item number 7, finance. So there's an updated summary of the council budget and then the quarterly report. Councillor Sanson did have a question in relation to the budget. And the question was, and that refers to page 14. So if you all want to turn to page 14 or on the screen or however you're doing it. The first question, the question was, forestry management expenses for the Maitai and Roding Forest are each 20k higher than the budgeted, which is a 40k increase despite no logging or harvest income for the period for either of these areas. What is the increase in cost attributed to? So for the Maitai, this is purely a timing issue, and we are still within the year-end budget. So if you look at the year-end budget for that item, we are still within the total budget, but it's a timing issue. And for the roading, yes, that is currently over budget, and that's principally from road maintenance work to clean up the storms in Q1. But the forecast will be reflected to take that into account through the check. We have Alistair here if there are any further questions on the accounts, and then obviously Sam can talk to his quarterly report through the check.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on the finances that perhaps Alistair can come into the meeting? Okay, thank you. Appreciate we're only halfway through the year with this report on the finances, but in reality we're 9 months into the year, so I'm kind of looking forward to Sam's update. So without any further ado, then if there's no further questions on the finances, Sam, I'll just pass over to you to talk to your quarterly report and perhaps with a mind to what's happening in the next 6 months from December might be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of highlighting the key points from the quarterly report, is that in health and safety, there was a lot of work done, but no incidents occurred throughout the work period. Environmental, a whole lot of ecological surveys going on as part of the Forest Stewardship Council certification. So that's been good, and yeah, quite busy in that space. We did have 2 breaches of the urban trucking curfews through the Maitai urban trucking route, out of just over 1,100 truck passes. So still, actively working on trying to turn that into a 0 breach situation. Harvesting, major work going on in the Maitai and Brook Forest through that period, but even more more relevant is the work going on in the Marsden over the current quarter we're in now. And then throughout the forest management, the main costs are in road maintenance and fertilising. And then, looking forward to our current quarter, we have ongoing harvesting at the Maitai Valley, which is going really well. We've done a lot of harvesting around the Maitai River and the pipeline at the Maitai, and we've had no incidents recorded with regard to that, which is really encouraging. Obviously, that was reasonably high risk, but resulted really well. A bit more work to do around the pipeline and river there, so we'll carry on doing our best around those couple of key points. Marsden Valley, the harvesting's all completed for the Marsden harvesting, although there's significant rehabilitation work going on there, with slash being removed from the skid sites, a whole lot of grass seeding and earthworks remediation. So that will be completed shortly, and pretty extensive rehabilitation work there. And in terms of the log market going forward, the domestic and export timber market is going very strong. Very, very healthy markets there, although the fuel costs and demand for ships has created a very expensive shipping for export logs, and that's taking the shine off that export market a little bit. Maitai will continue harvesting through till June, and Marsden, the rehabilitation will be finished by the end of April, and there's no replanting planned for this year in any of the Nelson City Council blocks. So the Maitai and Marsden are scheduled for replanting next winter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Sam. Any questions for Sam? Councillor Sam?
Thanks, through the chair. Kia ora, Sam. Thanks very much for that. Just a question arose from your comment regarding the slash. Is that does that get diverted, like to one of the companies that make pellets and biofuels out of harvestry waste, or what happens to the slash?
Yes, it does. It's picked up by a company called Aswood, who supply wholesale landscapes in Stoke, and they turn it into landscaping supplies and wood fuel products. So that's a great outcome for us, because it takes care of an environmental issue in the forest and turns it into a sustainable product. So
That's great, thanks. I think Aswood also do the diesel boiler to biofuel wood pellet conversion. So they've done them for a number of schools in the region.
One issue with it is for further out forest, for example, the Maitai, with the further travel and the logistics there, is it does get uneconomical very quickly, but Marsden is perfect for it.
And so if it's uneconomical, then how is it managed? What happens to it?
It's basically piled up on stable locations, the likes of skid sites, piled up and allowed to compost down and turn into mulch.
And I'm assuming that's well away from waterways and that kind of thing because of the tannins release. There was a tannin issue recently that was investigated. It was quite interesting finding out what pinene is even. We try to keep it away from the waterways, principally to avoid any excess amounts of slash blocking up waterways is the main reason behind that. Thanks. No further questions.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Sam. Okay, so no other questions on that aspect. We'll go to you, Lockie, with the replanting alternate species. Just a wee bit of an update. I'll be keen to hear how we're going, or how the take's gone up the brook with our plantings up there.
Oh, look, yeah, Kia ora, guys. The Brook site's a particularly hard site. I haven't been back to in the last month so to actually check to see what the survival rate is, but I suspect it's going to be down, and that's just going to reflect one, the planting was slightly late, and two, you know, it's certainly parts of the summer are quite dry on that side. And it's an exceptionally hard site. There's very little topsoil. And remembering the topsoils and stuff, the goodies that that actually feed those plants, particularly in those younger years.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments on your report?
Oh, just one other thing. You know, when I was through the roading forestry, I was doing Sam this morning actually. Roading forestry a month or so ago, I was actually quite impressed of how that forest is actually looking. I think it's a credit to Sam. Certainly from an environmental perspective, you know, the regen that's occurring in the gully systems is fantastic, and the tracking and the water tables and culverts and that look fantastic. So yeah, it's a big credit to Sam.
Okay, any questions for Lockie? All right, I think that brings us to the end of the report, does it, Mr. Levertis?
Through the chair, that's correct. Thank you.
Okay, all right then. Could I have a mover for the resolution that we received the report and the attachments, please? Thank you, Councillor Skinner, seconded by Councillor Fulton. Thank you. Thanks very much. Any discussion or any further discussion on the report? Okay, I'll put the motion then. All those in favour, tick the green box, and if you don't, tick the other one. Cross the other one. Yours is really slow coming up, Tim. Or was that just a ponderous decision?
No, I've got to just expand. I've got to expand the screen and then find it, and then minimise it again.
Brilliant. Okay, so
it just shows I've thought it through really well.
Yes, absolutely. So that's passed. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the agenda, and there is no public excluded section. So on that note, I'll call the meeting closed. Thank you very much, everybody, for attendance. Councillor Sanson for joining us, and for everybody's input. We've got obviously a lot going on in the background, but we look forward to the reports coming through